Hello, and thanks for joining us today for this session on transforming retail, sponsored by Sunrise Technologies and Microsoft. I'm Sue McMahon. I'm the Director of Partner Strategy for Retail and Consumer Goods globally at Microsoft. But joining me today, we have Scott Higley from Sunrise Technologies. Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about Sunrise and what your role is there?
Will do. So Sunrise Technologies is a partner that works with a lot of different retailers, some that are kind of newer to the retail footprint, maybe started digitally and went to brick and mortar, or vice versa. And we help them with a variety of needs around the Microsoft stack and the technologies to support their business. I've really enjoyed this personally over the years. I've been with Sunrise nearly 9 years now and got my start having conversations many years ago. I've done many deployments. In total, I think I'm around 200 retail stores that I help deploy solutions to. So it's been a good ride there.
Yeah, and I've encountered you during some of those deployment cycles as I've been at Microsoft. And, before joining Microsoft about 7 years ago, I also was a retail practitioner for many, many years at Macy's. So stores is in my heart, always will be. So it's great to have this conversation with you today. But, interestingly enough, I recently attended Shop Talk, and the conversation now, and as it should be, is around not multi-channels that we're transacting with or we're giving customers for product discovery, et cetera. It's really now about this unified experience, and the fact that there should be only one channel, and that is the customer. So their experiences, from whether they're in a store, whether they're on a digital property, whether they're on an e-commerce site, whether they're in social media, should all be very consistent across all those channels and should represent the retailer's brand. So really, really important topic at Shop Talk, and that's what we'll be kind of diving into today. And let's start with, what are some of the biggest challenges, Scott, that Sunrise is seeing retailers face in offering a truly unified commerce experience?
Okay. No, I mean, that's a great question. I'm glad it's a key kind of topic at Shop Talk. I think it's one that's super important. As a customer myself, like I'm Scott, whether I'm buying online or I'm walking into a store to buy something, and my expectations have shifted over time with what the retailer can do or can't do to help service me in that experience. I think it can be very challenging to provide unified commerce experiences for customers for a variety of reasons. I think sometimes there's technology challenges, right? How do we get our CRM, our e-commerce, our point of sale all to work together cohesively so that that same customer can be present across all those channels, regardless of which one they prefer at that moment in time. I think technology is obviously a big one. Sometimes I walk into situations where it's less technology and it's how is the organization thinking about themselves? Were they focused in one kind of channel first? And so they maybe started the e-commerce as an experiment, and as it's grown during the pandemic or such, have they restructured the organization to align incentives? Sometimes it's just too siloed, one channel versus the other. I think there's a lot of factors at play, but I mean, I'm curious, what were you hearing at Shop Talk? Have they talked about this in depth there and other venues?
Yeah, a lot of conversation around unified commerce, as I said. But one thing I heard that was impressed me very much was that this idea that's been around for probably a decade now, and it just got completely blown out during the pandemic, is that stores are dead. But actually, it's that idea that's dead because stores are very much healthy. We're seeing the return of traffic to stores. We see in research around Gen Z that they like to touch and feel product. They want to do that before they make a purchase, even though they're really active across every kind of digital channel that you can imagine and with influencers and all those things, but they want to touch and feel the product. So stores are just as important today as they were, 2 decades ago when they were the only option, or it was a very early time in e-commerce. So I think that that's one interesting thing out of Shop Talk. In fact, there was an entire kind of track devoted to stores and store experience and how to unify that with the digital and online experience. So that totally underscores exactly what you're saying. And retailers that are starting to do it well and really unify the experiences, I think of also post-purchase. I think of call center. I think of, I'm making a phone call or I'm in a chat, and either the digital agent or the live agent doesn't have all the context around what my issue is. And that should be table stakes at this point, but we're still not connected on the back end enough to make that happen. So I think that's a really important, activation channel that we're have been overlooking up until now. And retailers have always had the aspiration, and all companies, I think, to turn their customer care centers into a profit center rather than having it just be a cost center. For the first time now, I feel like with advances in AI capabilities, we're at the precipice of being able to do that, and we haven't been before. What are some of the things that Sunrise is seeing in terms of, improving that unified experience for the consumer of retail?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. It wasn't too long ago that we got called in specifically for that use case. We have our call center that's traditionally just been available to answer questions and, resolve a handful of issues. How do we convert them into a real profit center for the organization where they can service the customers, they can get sales that would have been lost otherwise? And it's very interesting. You mentioned the AI component. I think that's becoming more prevalent in those conversations as we look to these situations of we have a call center and we have all this disparate data. How do you make sense of it? And you can't do it. You can't do it after the fact. You're on the phone. You're servicing the customer. You need that information at your fingertips. So what we've seen get customers really excited is how quickly they can pull in assistance. And as they're servicing a customer, quickly querying, what others have dealt with, what are the related products or services that could tie into this situation. I think AI is making that more possible than it's ever been before. So I expect that to really improve significantly over time. And then, to your first comment with, Gen Z and their kind of change, I think it's been really interesting. I see it in my own kids. Man, they love their screens, and the digital world is, they're so comfortable there. But I also think Gen Z, as much as their lives are kind of digital, they, like you said, that physical appeal is so important, and it's to experience the products, but also the brand. Like going to a store, you don't just see the products, right? You see what it means for that retailer, right? And that's where we see unique messaging come through. And a lot of these, the Gen Z and other generations, they want to go after products that matter, right? That they have this association with, kind of outside of, the utility of the product. What is it, the good the brand is doing, and what does that mean? So it's been really fascinating. I was in a conversation earlier this week with a client, went to their offices, and a lot of the conversation is we have these great customers, but we don't know a lot of them still. We are struggling because so many are used to being kind of anonymous when they come through and they purchase from us. It's one of those traditional retailers that has hundreds of thousands of SKUs in their products, and people kind of come in and go, right? So a lot of their conversation is like, what do we need to do to appeal to those individuals so that they're willing to share their information, and we're able to have a longer, more meaningful relationship with them, through loyalty, et cetera. So they're looking to us to say, what are the technologies that can help us in that endeavor?
Yeah, that's a great point, Scott. And you mentioned earlier about, data silos in the back end that kind of prohibit us from doing those types of things and really knowing our consumers and who they are and, what their activities have been, not only with us, but also what can we learn from any kind of third-party data that we can get to, whether it be just anonymized to a certain segment, but we can apply it to that customer because we know he or she fits that segment. It's really important. And I think one of the big risks of not having unified customer data is exactly that, is getting it wrong, and making assumptions about a customer and how you're talking, your brand voice, how you're talking to them, how you're engaging with them, and just have it be off. And it takes, as a consumer and as a shopper myself, I'm sure you feel the same way. You kind of know immediately when that's happening. One of the most painful things, I think, is when you make a purchase from a retailer, whether it be online or in a store, but you still get targeted with ads for that same item that you just purchased a week ago, as you kind of traverse the interwebs. That to me is a sign of really disconnected data on the back end and lack of a knowledge of the customer. And I think that's one of the risks. Another one is, we were talking about call center, and you mentioned that, AI is going to could be a game changer in helping us do a better job. I mean, how many times I know when I call a call center and I get a chat bot, I'm now thinking about ways I can get from the chat bot to a real agent because it's become a bit more of a pain point than it's worth. So, with advances in generative AI and large language models, I mean, that truly is a game changer for so much of what we do every day, not just in retail and consumer goods, but certainly for call centers, and certainly for online search. But again, if your data is not unified on the back end, the LLM, large language model, can only provide so much accuracy in the way it's answering queries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think those, I'm like you. It's like star star 00. I want to get to the person, but it's because it's just really insufficient the way they kind of route you through that experience today. And I'm excited to see how AI makes that much more personable and real. I mean, that's one of the biggest intents behind LLMs, right? They're supposed to be able to say what is the actual intent of what's being asked, and how do I actually service that based on information I have available. So that's going to be very powerful for a lot of people that are like us, trying to get to the people side of things as quickly as possible.
100%. Yeah. And, we've talked a little bit about, what the landscape looks like, what the problems are, why it's so challenging. Unified commerce, unified retail experience. Those are, where the buzzwords are today and where the puck is moving. It's no longer omni-channel because, again, I said it, there's only one channel, it's the customer. But, there's so many challenges to getting there. Let's talk a little bit about how solutions from Sunrise and even Microsoft by extension, because you are a valued partner that implements so many of the solutions that we have and adds capabilities on top of them that are really specific to retail and consumer goods. Let's talk a little bit about how Sunrise's solutions are helping to elevate the unified experience.
No, absolutely. I think, when we get into an engagement and try to understand where a retailer is at in their journey, because they're all in a journey towards this unified experience, some of them maybe don't even realize how far they are from achieving that unified experience. I think there's lots of opportunities to improve. And like you said, get to where the puck is going to be. And so when we're in those conversations, I think we like to start with what does the customer need? What does the customer expect? How are these different channels expected to cohesively serve that individual? And so we spend a lot of time, I think, before we ever get to the solution moment, to say what is the need here in the business. Recently I was talking to a client who is investing a lot to just catch up with email marketing, but similar to what you were just saying, like, you can get inundated with all these emails already offering you products that you already purchased. It's just not relevant. My personal inbox is, it's like 80% ads that I'll never look at. So the question becomes, is email still alive? Does it still a good way to connect? Or what are the ways that we need to connect? And so what I think Microsoft is doing is looking at that from a very kind of forward thinking perspective of these customers are going to need to be served across all kinds of channels. I've seen huge strides in a variety of tools to say, are we going to enable SMS for our customers? Are we going to enable, better communications for them? There's been investments in the commerce solution that have been just absolutely essential to be able to serve them in the ways that they most want. I think Sunrise, what we've invested in for a long time has been, let's make sure that the core of why they're coming to the store to have and purchase a product, let's make sure that back end is fully aligned with that goal. So we've invested a lot in a retail replenishment solution set, one that makes sure on top of all the standard functionality in Dynamics that the right product is in the right place at the right time. And it has kind of a rule set engine to say what are the expectations we have for the level of product in stores, and what does that look like, and how does that shift over time? Because we all know a lot of our retailers, they face seasonal constraints. Sometimes it's much busier than other times, right? And so we need to make sure that we have the right level of inventory. So we've done a lot on that front. And then as we're in these engagements, deploying the technology, there's been a lot of interesting use cases that have come up where we've said, a client's come to us and said, we've had an issue with XYZ. For example, customer couldn't find what they were looking for on the shelves, and we're too slow to get product back on the shelves, or we're too slow in finding how we could get that inventory to that customer in a different way, right? And so we've done some things across Power Apps. Of course, there's standard functionality in the Commerce tool set as well to look up inventory, see where it is at any place in your supply chain so that you can then move it to that end customer. But we've had a couple situations where we've looked to the Power Platform, which is that, really strong low code, no code solution set that allows us to, really build a tailored mobile app or small solution to meet the need. And I think, retailers, they're not always looking for a huge solution. Sometimes they're looking to the simple, small problems so that they can create that meaningful experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And just to kind of level set for those that might be, watching this, Microsoft has a platform of business application solutions. We call it Dynamics 365. And what Scott's referring to is the fact that it is very composable. It has commerce components. It has sales and marketing components. It has finance and operations components. It has supply chain components. It's not meant necessarily as a rip and replace of an existing ERP or CRM, but it's really composable because you can plug in different aspects of it that will out of the box enable functionality. Like, for example, real-time customer data platform is one example of that. Hand in hand, there's also something we call the Power Platform, which is low code, no code capabilities around building apps and workflows and virtual agents, those types of things that a partner like Sunrise Technologies is expert in building out, like bespoke use case level capabilities to whatever your back end is in terms of ERP, CRM, to be able to supplement that and solve for things that it's very, might be very difficult to customize a SaaS solution. But if you can extend it with low code tools, you bring that much more value and that much more centricity, customer centricity to your business. So all very, very important. I'll talk about from a Microsoft perspective, some of the things that we're doing in addition to what's available in our platforms. So in Microsoft Cloud for Retail, one of the very first generative AI use cases that retailers went, this is Nirvana, was around, the ability to search and keyword search and how we can transform keyword search into something more intuitive, more conversational, broader. For example, I'm hosting a birthday party for my 8-year-old daughter. She loves unicorns and rainbows. What do I need? Instead of going to multiple websites and searching for different products that might have a unicorn or might have some rainbows, generative AI search can help bring all that together in one place. And again, in a conversational tone. I don't need to know a special language. I don't need to think of the right keywords. I just need to be really descriptive. So what we did was we built out a template, a Copilot template for personalized shopping that's available in Microsoft Cloud for Retail, that a partner can help the retailer extend to their specific use case, that the retailer themselves, if they have the data science and the data engineering resources at their disposal, can do the same, so that it's reasoning over your data from your websites and your inventory and your pricing engines, all those things. But it brings that layer, that semantic layer that enables a Copilot inside an e-commerce website or a consumer mobile app. So some of the things that we're doing is trying to democratize these tools, both through partners and directly to the retailers. So lots of work happening in that space. Stay tuned for more announcements coming soon.
Yeah. Wow. That's very exciting. I think, apart from asking your parents growing up, nowadays people are asking Bing, they're asking Google, and they're saying it like, help me with this, exactly like you said. What kind of gift should I get for my friend who's turning 15, 16, whatever? And so they're used to this type of, question-based approaches to figuring out what they need to buy and how they need to do things. I'm excited for that. That's going to be a game changer. And it's expected to be, like you said, it's expected to be able to plug into the organization in the capacity they need. And I think that's the beauty of, Dynamics 365, Microsoft's approach to business applications or the Power Platform. It's all meant to be pulled in, in the increments that make sense. Not every tool is supposed to be all encompassing and everything to every situation, right? You might need little things to move the needle forward. That's very cool.
That's absolutely right. And, in addition to the template I talked about, we've also built co-pilots into the various modules of Dynamics 365. So think about, sales and marketing to create quick summaries of, sales opportunities, leads, updates, even content generation, email generation, alerts. All of that can be built in again in a conversational tone where you ask the co-pilot the question instead of, going to a website or Bing or Google or wherever and searching or trying to search on an internal, SharePoint site or whatever the back end may be to find information. It kind of asks the question and the co-pilot brings the information to you in very digestible language. So you no longer do you have to go through the first 3 pages of keyword search results because they're all ads to get to the real
Yeah.
meat of what you're looking for, or combine several different pieces of information. The co-pilot does that all for you.
No, it's been great. And as a business professional, what I've actually switched a lot of my searching from Google to Bing as of late because Bing has that native connectivity to all the workplace tools I use, Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, et cetera. I can do a search and it's surfacing documents,
Yes.
that may be relevant in answering the question. So I mean, it's not only for our retailers, but all of the professionals that are going to be listening to this. There's so much, power in Copilot to pull together things that matter to you when you need it.
Yeah, it's a remarkable how Copilot is kind of supercharging productivity of business folks within companies all over the world, not just retail. The Microsoft 365 Copilot, for example, kind of pulls data from your calendar and your email and Teams chats and your SharePoint and any files that have been shared with you or data that you have access to throughout the organization. And pulls it back into a cohesive, coherent response that you can do something with. So yes, it's an exciting time to be in retail, and it's an exciting time to be with a technology company like Microsoft.
No,
So.
absolutely. And I feel like very soon I'm going to be like, how can I even live without this? Like it's not going to be like exciting and new. It's going to feel like completely necessary and
Yes.
standard. And that's what Microsoft, they're investing so much to make this, a reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand. I know from my perspective that our enterprise copilot sits open in my window all day long. And whenever I have a question that I would have normally gone out, and I also use Bing, but I would have normally gone out and searched Bing, I just type it into Copilot and I tell it, do I want information from my work or do I want information from the web? I give it those expansive directions and comes right back. So exciting times.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So Scott, thanks again so much today for spending time with us and kind of demystifying, what capabilities we have at Microsoft that Sunrise extends so brilliantly, and how they can help retailers solve some of these challenges of becoming more unified in their proposition to their customers. Really appreciate the partnership with Sunrise, and thanks to all of you for joining us and viewing this. If anyone is interested in being put in contact with Sunrise Technologies, simply reach out to your Microsoft representative, and we'll hook you up.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Scott.
No, thank you too, Sue.